So there are several points that we think are critical for RCAs to know. And the first one is to really educate themselves about eating disorders, the signs and symptoms. The second point is to be familiar with what scenarios might come up for them in their role as RCAs. And the third is the resources and support that we have on campus for students that struggle with eating disorders.
The first important thing to know about eating disorders is that they are complex biological, psychological, and social problems. And contrary to popular belief, they really aren't about food. The psychological underpinnings do manifest themselves in eating and exercise behaviors, and what we do know is that an early indicator of good recovery is weight restoration or stabilization and normalization of those eating patterns. So while students are in therapy and participating in counseling, we highly prioritize helping them relearn how to nourish their brains and bodies.
So there are some things that you can look for in an eating disorder. What is an eating disorder? Well, the way I think about it is that, like most illnesses, there's a continuum of symptoms that you might see in a person's behavior, in their physical body, in the way they're interacting with you. And it's up to the healthcare provider really to sort that piece out. But if you see anything that seems severe or out of the ordinary in a person's, again, physical behavior or in their physical body, those might be reasons to just approach them as a person and say, are you okay? The 3 Ds that we talk about in eating disorders language that give us a sort of a sense that there might be a problem would be the constant dieting that people might be on. They're always on a diet. They're really dissatisfied with their body. And there is this it's uncontrollable drive to be thin. It sort of takes over. So we're not talking about the usual sort of language that someone might have. Maybe one day they don't like the way they feel or look. We're talking about patterns of behavior that really suggest that this person in front of you is preoccupied, that this thing is getting in their way. It's not allowing them to have the joy that they should be having. It's not allowing them to be able to do the things they want to do just because they can't get into that dress or they don't look the way they want to look, or it just is a destructive kind of pattern that you see, and your natural instinct is, I'm worried.
Now, the second point that's important for you to know about are the scenarios that are likely to arise in your role as an RCA. And the first situation is when a student struggling with an eating disorder comes to you in confidence for help. Sometimes it's hard to know what to do. In those situations, you always have somebody available, the director of student life at your college, or even coming here to counseling and psychological services to consult with a professional about what steps to take. Most often, you want to help a student get to the support and resources that will help them with their struggles. It's always best for an RCA to direct a student to a professional, because you don't ever really know exactly what that student is struggling with, how severe their problems are, whether or not they also have anxiety and depression, and that judgment or evaluation is most effectively done by a professional. So to move the RCA out of making that decision, then the intervention by the RCA becomes getting them into speaking with someone. When working with a student that's struggling with an eating disorder, it's always important to have a non-judgmental attitude, to be open and supportive, and to be encouraging them to seek help, to seek professional help and guidance. You might be in a situation where you're talking to somebody for the first time, and the most important thing is to communicate to them that they can talk to you, that you're reliable, you're a resource, you'll keep things confidential, and that really you can be there for them. That trust is going to enable them to really make a connection with you and eventually maybe follow recommendations for getting support and help. And finally, what's really most important is to know that helping someone usually involves a series of conversations. You don't just tell them where to go for help and they go and get it. That might take some time, and that's part of the process. So the second scenario would be when concerned friends come to you about a roommate or a classmate that they suspect has an eating disorder. They're worried about them and they want to know what to do. So it's important at that point to take a step back and really come up with a plan. And the director of student life and the counselors at the counseling center would be a good person to consult with about how to proceed. And when you're working with the concerned friends, they're typically very anxious, they want something to happen right away. So your role with them is to remind them that this is a process and that it does take time, and that really professionals are the best one to be able to help their friend. And the best way they can help their friend right now is by being non-judgmental, open, supportive, and by refraining from talking about eating, not eating, dieting, losing weight, and exercise, which is often a trigger for people that struggle with disordered eating. Here at UHS, we have a multidisciplinary treatment team that works with students struggling with all kinds of eating disorders. We have a physician and a family nurse practitioner, and they evaluate the medical status of students and work with them to keep them medically healthy. We have a dietitian that helps with students' food plans and eating and figuring out what might be nutritionally most beneficial for them. We have therapists, psychologists that work individually and also provide groups for students. We have an athletic trainer that works with athletes, and then we have a psychiatrist that evaluates students and works with students that might need psychiatric medication. So there's a comprehensive approach. We also, from time to time, send students off campus if that would be in their best interest. We're really trying to take an individualized approach to each student and give them what they need so they can be successful at Princeton as they recover. So a student really could begin with any one of the professionals on the team. Sometimes students don't want to see a counselor. It might be easier for them, more comfortable to see a dietitian or even a medical staff person. So that's important to know when you're referring, that they can start wherever it feels most comfortable for them.
So as an RCA, I think the single most important thing you can do is model healthy behaviors and create a culture of positive body image and balanced self-care. And this includes flexibility in eating, appropriate amounts of physical activity, avoiding conversations that are negative around body talk or commenting on your own body image, and creating an atmosphere where you can help your advisees set boundaries around healthy and balanced self-care. And I find that, male and female RCAs have great success doing this equally. It's really important to know that this is not just a woman's problem, and that male RCAs can play a tremendous role in building and creating a very positive culture in the colleges. One key thing that everybody can do is to make a commitment to avoid negative body talk. And this is equally true for men as it is for women. Avoiding conversations around how terrible you think you look, or how you really need to get that six-pack, or saying, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that cupcake at that study session. And changing the subject when you can, or turning it around to include things about flexibility and fun, which is also a big part of a balanced nutrition and exercise. And being very mindful and attentive to doing those things, very intentionally in fact, are going to be things that can help you improve that culture in your college.